J.K. Rowling, once again, back at it with the white vans. She's just insatiable. She can't get enough. And it's incredible. It's truly astounding that we went from her occasionally, slipping up and having an old thumb, hitting the like button on very transphobic tweets, and how far we've come from what the situation used to be. You know, how far we've come. Do you remember when she tweeted this? I respect every trans person's right to live in any way that feels authentic and comfortable to them. I'd march with you if you were discriminated against on the basis of being trans. She did initially at least pretend to be supportive of trans people and say, yeah, you know, I think that you should be able to live authentically. I think as an adult you should be able to do whatever you're allowed to do, which is still, you know, obviously that's still an indirectly anti-trans statement. If you have a sentiment that, oh, adults can be trans but kids can't, you're still kind of implying that it's bad for kids somehow, that it's inappropriate for kids somehow, and it's not. Like, you're implying that being trans is sexual, or that if we tell kids that trans people exist, then that will somehow become a contagion. Like, no, that's not how it works. So anyway, J.K. Rowling used to ostensibly claim to be in support of trans people having the ability to self-identify and dress the way that they want to dress and be authentic. And it's just gone gradually downhill. If you're enjoying this video, hit the like button, maybe subscribe, hit all notifications if you want. Feel free to check out the links in the description. You might find some merch you like, or you can hit up the Patreon to support the content and find free stuff. So this starts with her doing one of her big long tweets. She's got a picture attached to here. She's responding to someone who says, even if that were true, how would barring trans women from women's spaces protect against predators? They will go in regardless, and they have done since women's spaces came into existence. Of course there are trans predators, and they should be locked up, but barring all trans people is not the way to go about this. Joanne's response to that is, we don't leave our doors and windows wide open when we go out because thieves will find a way in anyway. Strangely, I've never heard anyone say, let's stop background checking teachers because we'll always find a way to interfere with kids. I mean, she's just gonna lump trans women in with men, and like, that's her whole fundamental thing, because she continues like, when men, all men, however they identify, are banned from women's spaces, those who disregard the ban can be challenged inside the space and out. They mark themselves out as suspicious by breaking a rule decent men respect. Nobody claims the rule has successfully kept out every single man who wants to commit voyeurism or sexual assault. What we're saying is that allowing males into female-only spaces on the basis of their claim to be a woman removes an obstacle that has hitherto been proven to increase women and girls' safety. So yeah, I mean, she's just like, all men are potential threats, and all trans women are functionally men. Like, it's like anti-male and anti-trans at the same time. And this continues on. Oh my god, these Victorian platitudes, true. 88% of sexual crimes committed in changing/locker rooms happen in those that are unisex. Why? Because malign men don't have to justify their presence near unclothed women and girls. They can't be challenged. They don't stand out. This is obvious to all but the terminally naive. I don't actually know. That seems like a pretty high statistic, because my guess actually would be that the majority of sexual crimes committed in changing in locker rooms happen in male locker rooms. That would be my guess, actually. So I don't know where this number is coming from. It kind of seems like she's just making shit up. It is too seldom noted that every single man arguing for the removal of single-sex spaces is arguing for his own right to enter those spaces. I don't think so. I think that there are plenty of cisgender men who are, she's referring to trans women here. She's saying every single man who's arguing for this. So she's referring to trans women. But there are cisgender men who argue in favor of like allowing trans women into women's bathrooms. And it's not about him getting into the bathroom because he wants to keep using the men's bathroom. It's crazy. I know from experience that they feign outrage when this point is put to them, gibbering that they're just being good, virtuous progressives who are standing up for trans women, that they personally won't be availing themselves of the new opportunities afforded them. Oh, so she's saying that any cisgender man who argues in favor of trans women's right to use the bathroom is himself a sexual predator who wants to take advantage of this in order to get, like, she's basically saying, Joanne is basically saying there is no such thing as a person who argues in favor of trans rights in good faith. Fundamentally, that's what she's saying here. If trans women who argue for their access to women's spaces are just doing it because they want to do something inappropriate in that space, and cisgender men only argue in favor of trans women's access to this space because they are secretly hoping that they can take advantage of that in order to get into those spaces. Like, she's basically suggesting that there is no such thing as a person who earnestly just wants trans women to be able to use the bathroom, like, safely and in a way that is not, like, fundamentally humiliating and uncomfortable. Yeah, this is a really good point, Mama. If trans women were the same as cis men, then studying them as separate demographics would yield the same results. However, it does not. Transphobes cite statistics for cis men's behavior while they're talking about trans women, claiming that trans women's behavior is exactly the same. But then they will say also that they aren't suspicious of cis men because their behavior is different. Like, it's just a lot of, yeah, it's contradictory. And also, there's also the fact that some gender critical TERF people are now saying they would prefer to use a male restroom than to use a women's room with a trans woman. Like, they would rather, that they feel safer, allegedly, in a male restroom than they do in a female restroom with a trans woman in it. Like, the like baseless hatred is off the charts. Absolutely off the charts. Eric says, I've heard of 2 situations where gender neutral bathrooms had to then have a separate women's still because of bad situations in the gender neutral bathroom. Both situations, the offender was cisgender, but it was not a man both times. See? It's like women can do shitty things too sometimes, actually. The fact remains that instead of calling out male violence against trans women and working to make male spaces safer, these men have thrown their energy into the fight to remove women and girls' rights to safety, privacy, and dignity. So yeah, this is the suggestion that trans women, like, should be able to feel safe using male spaces because, like, you know, the problem is men. Why aren't we focusing on making male spaces safe for trans women to exist in? Because some trans women will say that they use the women's room because now that they pass as women, it's unsafe for them in the men's room. And, like, that is true. So, but yeah, the argument then that Joanne is making is like, well, you're still not a woman, therefore we just, you work out your own problem in your own space. Don't come into my bathroom because it's her bathroom. She peed on it, therefore it's hers. She continues, and if anyone genuinely believes none of these enthusiastic, heterosexual, non-trans identified male, quote, allies aren't personally enthralled by the idea of women and girls losing basic protections, I have several bridges to sell you. Like, okay, just trust me. Like, oh, if you don't believe this, then you're just super naive and stupid. I'm super smart. She's super smart. But that's not where this story ends. That's not where this story ends, by far. Yeah. So someone responded, why should trans women be forced to use male spaces? Don't you understand just how humiliating for us that would be? Or don't you care? J.K. Rowling says, someday, somebody really should have explained to you that your hurt feelings don't trump other people's rights, nor are women and girls validation props or comfort blankets. Okay, what a victim activity this is, like victimhood mentality. Your feelings don't trump my rights. You're trying to take away my rights because you think you feel like a certain way. Like, all right, girl, calm the down. Mama says, I'm uncomfy with X demographic in my restroom is exactly the logic racists used to support segregation. Gendered restrooms exist to protect people from misogynistic sexism, which objectively trans women do experience. But it doesn't count. It doesn't count. It's not the same. And if anyway, if a trans woman was getting sexual harassed or whatever, or like, bothered in the men's bathroom because she looks like a woman, well, she probably likes it anyway because she's getting off on being affirmed in her weird sex thing. Like, that's what these people will genuinely say. They don't even bother to try to make it sound rational anymore. And again, we're going to keep going. Joanne, you're saying that this lady should use the men's locker room? And this is a British journalist and trans woman who looks to be around the same age as Joanne, actually, maybe a little bit younger. This response says, that's a vile misogynistic man. He should use the men's with the other men. And then, if India Willoughby is a misogynist, why did she become a woman? make it make sense. And then J.K. Rowling coming in with India didn't become a woman. India is cosplaying a misogynistic male fantasy of what a woman is. Now, India Willoughby, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. Sorry. So she is not a small figure, I guess, in Britain. I'd never heard of her before this event, but so J.K. Rowling is personally attacking this woman, and because her rhetoric needs to stay consistent, she has to say that India is not a woman. She even avoids pronouns in this situation. She just says India didn't become a woman. India is cosplaying a misogynistic male fantasy. And it turns out in Britain, that's kind of maybe a crime now to say that. India Willoughby responded saying, "How dare you, J.K. Rowling? I'm a woman, recognized in law and reality. Honestly, you are such a vile person. The most obviously transphobic thing you could say to a trans person. Go get some therapy." And then, like, she was nominated Woman of the Year at something that, I don't know what it was specifically. Like, she's legally female, she looks female. That's the deal. All right. So there was a recent precedent set in the UK, a trial about misgendering. Here's the most recent development that I have about what is going to occur here. Let's watch this little video together. So this is India in the media now, talking about what happened.
J.K. Rowling has definitely committed a crime. I'm legally a woman. She knows I'm a woman, and she calls me a man. It's a protected characteristic, and that is a breach of both the Equalities Act and the Gender Recognition Act.
So basically, this woman is taking legal action against J.K. Rowling. I don't know how far this is going to go, but there was a recent case. Like, someone lost a case. I thought it was a civil suit. I can't remember. If you misgender a trans person in the UK, that's a form of, like, hate crime, basically. It's like a form of personal attack that's not considered acceptable. And, like, yeah, the way that she's describing it, the way that India is describing it, it's actually like not just necessarily, I don't know, it's like a crime, but, like, I don't know if that means any punitive action besides a fine. I think it's probably mostly just damages. With Rowling being incredibly litigious towards her critics, I hope she loses everything. Seriously, like, get sued, lady.
She's tweeted that out to 14 million followers. If you check out the accounts that have been responding to me on the back of that, her trigger, it's absolutely disgusting, putrid, some of the worst abuse I've ever seen on social media. And I know I'm at the center of it, and I might be a little bit biased.
Well, what are you going to do about this?
So yeah, another thing to point out is that she is experiencing, you know, not only the initial damage of being misgendered, which is considered something that you can have damages for in the UK, but that she also received, like, vile responses, probably death threats, you know, transphobic remarks from probably all around the world. And I'm curious if that would change, like, what kind of damages she would be awarded at the end of the day. We'll see.
What am I going to do about it? Well, I've been to the police and I've reported it as an issue. I contacted Northumbria Constabulary yesterday.
What is that?
So you reported J.K. Rowling
I have reported J.K. Rowling to the police for what she said, which I don't know if that's going to be treated as a hate crime, malicious communications, but it's a cut and dried offence as far as I'm concerned.
So she's not sure that it will definitely be charged as a hate crime, or if it could just be, like, essentially, I think, you know, a U.S. equivalent might be like libel or slander, like malicious communications. So the Northumbria is a region in the north of Britain, and then that's the Popo. Okay, so she went to the Popo in the north of England specifically. Off the back of this, more of the UK legacy media has been more willing to call out JKR. I hope so. I would like to see the tide start to turn on that. It would be cool, but we'll see.
And at the end of the day, it is a hate crime. Trans gender identity is a protected characteristic, just as race is, just as sexuality is. And the equivalent of what J.K. Rowling said, calling a trans person a man, deliberately, knowing that that person is a woman, and I am a woman, regardless of what J.K. Rowling says. I've been through everything that's required of me. My birth certificate says female. my passport,
And that's
all
like
my documents.
a rigorous process in the UK. It's not easy to get all of your documents updated there. Like to get your birth certificate updated, you have to get a gender recognition certificate, and you usually have to, I think, have some kind of lower surgery in order to get that. Like, it's like a very difficult process, or you have to at least have some amount of procedures and medical care done. Typically, cringing at no mask interview at a restaurant. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's like. It's pretty annoying. It's embarrassing, really. I find it really embarrassing, personally.
I am legally recognized as a woman. And for J.K. Rowling to deliberately, and that is the key word, misgender me, knowing who I am, is grossly offensive. It is a hate crime, and it should be treated just as somebody calling a black person the N-word, or an Asian person the P-word, or a...
Okay, that's the end of the section that we get to see. Yeah, I think that it's pretty clear, at least based on recent precedent, that yes, according to the Equality Act, like the Gender Recognition Act, for once I'm glad that the British put so much emphasis on politeness. Yeah, they are bound by that, and the law would have to change in order for this behavior to not be classified as a hate crime. Like, that, it's really fascinating, and I'm curious to see where this is gonna go from here. Because wow, holy cow, the consequences of your actions. India is also a more centrist to conservative journalist who is well respected. She has a political advantage here against JKR in all respects. Rowling picked the wrong one this time. Right. That's the thing about the kind of abuse that J.K. Rowling spews, is that she's often directing it toward people who don't have resources, whether that's financial resources, whether that's like the emotional support resources required to help get them through a process of suing someone as big as J.K. Rowling. Rowling's got money to spend. Like, she's got time to kill. And someone like, you also need the support of the media. So if you're a well-respected trans woman who is already accepted in society and in the media, like she works in the media. But yeah, a little faffo, a little mess around, find out for J.K. Rowling. I think you picked the wrong person this time to mess with. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I don't know how this works. It's a hate crime, but it's like hate speech. It's not a violent crime, and I don't know what the penalties are. Is this a jail time thing? Probably not. I'm guessing it's just more of a monetary thing, and I don't think that it's gonna take very much to prove the case that it was hate speech. So I guess the only thing to see is what the punishment is going to be. Like, how big is the fine? She wouldn't change her views, but she might change her tune. That's the thing. You can't necessarily get people to change their deeply held inner beliefs about trans people, but you can make them shut up about it in public. Like, this is not acceptable in public. You cannot talk this way about people in public. You cannot be like this toward people. There are consequences. Like, if you say something crappy, people are going to yell at you. Or if you say something illegal, then you are probably going to get legal repercussions on you. The only thing is that if she does end up having to pay that money or whatever it is that the punishment is, she's definitely going to use that to galvanize her supporters to then try to get she's going to manage to try to get the whole Equality Act, like, repealed. Or she's going to have it amended to specifically not have trans people in it. She's got the money and the clout to get the law changed. Well, do we have anything else to say about this? What is she, a septuagenarian now? How old is J.K. Rowling? She's 58. All right. I could have swore she was in her 60s. She's not looking too good. It turns out being a hateful bitch is, like, not good for your skin. Yeah. Trying to repeal the Equality Act is a thing that good people do, according to JKR's mind. Well, thank you all for enjoying that little segment with me. You're welcome to hit the like button if you haven't already. And she's a pentagenarian. She's 58 years old. She'll be 60 in a couple years, I guess. It sucks that she's so young, because it means that she's gonna plague us forever. And also she's an evil witch who runs off of spite, so she's gonna be around forever anyway. I admit I sometimes feel better thinking about how much hatred ages you. Like, listen, I'm getting lines in my face, but at least they're like smile lines. You know what I mean? Oh my God, I'm turning 30. Skincare recommendations. Anybody? Any product recommendations for someone with fairly dry skin? And, oh yeah, I need to put this J.K. Rowling thing in my notes. J.K. Rowling commits hate crime. Much love to my patrons, especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Michelle Frateroli, Amanda B., Wellington Marcus, Michelle Winter, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Suzanne Maynard, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Jamie Jam, Pasnell Infinity, Nova, Sojo, Elizabeth Bartell, Ella V. Nobody, Kevin Young, Sarah A., Athiet, Celeste, Desi Quiche, Liam Hodgson, and Mr. Atheist.